just drinking coffee at 7 p.m. like it's a good idea. Hey, what's up? I'm Jay Moss, and today we're going to talk about, the Kali Masi record, but more importantly, we're going to talk about being able to work from anywhere and working in the right environment and how important workflows are, and just how awesome it is to be able to get so much done with so few tools now. I think that like it's really come down to it's all what's up in here and your artistic vision, and the tools are so like affordable and obtainable now that it's really empowered so many artists and engineers. So after it was confirmed that I was going to be working on the new Kali Masi record, and we had some downtime in between, when we confirmed it and when it actually happened, I happened to stop by my friend Seamus's merch warehouse. He's since moved, but at the time he was in like 4,000 square feet, and he's a drummer. He played in like Vanna and all of these other really cool bands, but he had a drum set up there, and I was like, dude, I bet that drum set sounds awesome up here. And he was like, yeah, like, want to hear it? And so he just like hit a snare. Or even that alone, just echoing like in this big space. And it was like the perfect situation where you had a ton of square footage, so you didn't have a lot of like low frequency buildups and that kind of thing. And then you just have racks of t-shirts, and that's actually like the best like diffusion, sound absorption. It like you still retain all of the awesomeness of the big space, but it sounds like more controlled. And I was like, oh my god, like what if we do some drums up here? I was like, would that be cool? And Seamus, being the very laid back chill dude that he is, he was like, yeah, as long as we can work it around like his business and stuff. So anyway, I sent a video of us just like hitting the snare drum in this space to the band, and I was like, I think this will be really sweet. Do you guys want to do it? And they said yes, so I was stoked. But then I was like, oh my god, like what are we gonna do? Normally, obviously, we've got this place and we do a ton of records here, and they sound great, and that's fine. But since we were going for a different experience, I didn't want to break down like all of my outboard gear and like computer and bring it all over. So I was like, oh man, like what am I going to do? Well, I reached out to the fine folks at MOTU, who are actually located pretty near me in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I was like, hey, this is kind of what I'm up to. Do you guys have anything like that? And they most certainly did. So I got this, the MOTU 828 Mark III. It's a pretty attractive little package. It's got 8 dedicated pre's in it. It's got like great displays and like everything that you could really want, and it all runs over USB really easy. So they let me 2 of these bad boys, and we daisy chain them and to have enough channels for the drums. And so here's the crazy thing, I just had 2 of those, normal mics, stands, etc., and then a laptop. Not this laptop, actually. This is my new laptop. This laptop is actually like 5 times more powerful than the laptop we used. We used my wife's old MacBook Pro 13-inch dual core, like dinosaur stuff, comparatively to what I use from a day-to-day thing. But it was just the one that we had kicking around at the time, and it's pretty amazing. So I want to say thanks, MOTU. This isn't like sponsored or anything like that. They didn't ask me to do this, nothing in return. But Brendan over there is a really sweet guy, was very generous and helped us out. So I thought on a whim, before I have to send these back out tomorrow, I would just talk about them and talk about the products just a little bit, and then also talk about this new record we're doing and talk about modern workflows, all that stuff kind of in one fell swoop. So let me kind of put my money where my mouth is. I've got that session up now, and why don't we listen to some of the drums that we recorded in this really cool space. All right, here we go. Let's listen to some drums. So I'm a huge fan of the way these drums sound. It just sounds like rock and roll. They're big. They sound like they're in a big space because they were in a big space. But the thing I really, really like is the overhead. So I want to show you those next. I didn't have to do a lot to the drums to get them sounding good. And when you've got good player, good gear, in this case, it was just good microphones and the MOTUs and a laptop in the right acoustic environment with the right composition, they kind of just do a lot of the work for you. But the big difference is for a lot of producers who are working with like smaller rooms, and that's a big constricting thing when you're dealing with drums. I just want to show off these overheads and show like they're almost like in between overheads and then like room mic, just because the space was so large, but also like because of all the t-shirts like kind of controlled. They sound really cool. Okay, let's hear that same passage and just check out the room mics. right, let's look at the chain on these overheads real quick. So the first thing I have is BX Control. I don't know if a lot of people use this plugin, but I really like it. I've got the Mono Maker is the only thing in the plugin I'm using. I brought it up to 282. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start it at 0. We're gonna hit play. What I want you to listen for is how, as I move this knob up, the low end of the drums, kick, toms, snare starts to collapse to right down the middle. That centers that image. It gives it a lot of power, but it leaves all that stereo space for your hi-hats and for your cymbals and that type of stuff. Now watch, if I go really far, we can actually just make it legitimately mono. When you're mixing, you can't really overstate how important it is to have the things in the center, and the things you want on the sides out to the sides, and create like a really nice sense of stereo separation. Things are basically like where they belong. That Mono Maker plugin goes a long way to ensure that. The next plugin in the chain is Soothe. Everyone knows I love Soothe. I'll show you how I use it here. I love Soothe on overheads. It basically is always on my overheads at this point. Okay, as advertised, here is Soothe, and here are my settings. Let's listen. But you know what? Instead of being on a tom part here, let's go up to some of these hi-hats. This is no Soothe. And you can see all of these harmonics here that are dipping down are getting attenuated only as they're getting hit. That's my favorite part about Soothe, is it's like dynamic notching. And lastly, I just used a little fab filter just to control the very, very top end, particularly on the hi-hats. I like to make sure that my cymbals and my drums sonically are sort of in the same ballpark. That's why I often use darker cymbals and thinner cymbals. They have less overtones, and I find that they're easier to balance with the rest of the kit, making the kit like more of one image so I can kind of EQ it better. That's not to say that you can't make great records with A customs, and that happens all the time. I just personally really like the Zildjian Dark K series, thinner the better kind of. And I also like the Sabian, I think it's the HHX series, but yeah, darker, thinner is totally my jam. So as you can see here, I've got some like pretty simple stuff going on as far as the EQs going. I'm just shaving down a bunch of stuff up top. It brought it closer to where everything else was in terms of the high end of the mix. And then this area, this like 3K, 3.3, whatever, that kind of can end up a little hissy or like a whistle. So I did a little extra attenuation here on top of the Soothe that I was already doing. And you can see over here, the dark gray is where the hi-hats would have been. So let me bypass this. Big difference, right? I really like the dark cymbals sitting with the drums that way. I mean, that's it. What a simple, super chain. No effects, there's no reverb on that. It just sounds big on its own. So thank you, MOTU, for hooking it up with this killer gear. I totally owe you one, and I promise I'll send it back tomorrow, I think. And yeah, that's kind of it. So hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. With that, I am Jay Moss. Adios. See you soon.